Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 513, and today we'll be covering early modern East. And today we have Mike Replogle, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. He told me to emphasize the first, so I'll get the feedback when we bring him up. If you're watching, tell us where you're watching from. If you have questions, please put them on the right-hand side in the comment section. I will promise to get to them, as long as they're not political in nature, right? All right, so folks, without further ado, here he is.
Hello. Oh, there we go.
Hey there, how are you?
Hey, hello.
Well, thank you for coming on. I know we're kind of back and forth with your schedule. I know you got the kids getting out and et cetera, et
Yeah, yeah,
cetera.
yeah.
Thank you to Rocky for, he referred me to bring you on, and I'm glad he did because, well, no, I mean, obviously your tenure was very early with GM Remy, and then we'll get into the coining of the phrase art within your art. Your first one to do summer camps, et cetera. But before all that, like, what was your martial arts background, or what is it?
Oh,
Pre Remy, I guess.
oh, pre-Remy. Well, let's see. When I was a kid, my dad he wrestled in college and he boxed in the Navy. So he kind of gave me a little bit of a introduction there when I was a kid. But I didn't really start studying um, Asian martial arts until I moved to LA. I'm from San Francisco Bay Area originally. I moved to LA way back. And a friend of mine recommended a dojo when I was in LA. A guy named Danny DeVito, and
Danny
wound up
DeVito, not the actor. No.
not the actor. We always run through that. Different spelling too. And believe me, they look nothing alike. In fact, Dan DeVito was on one of the black belt covers with Raimi, so
Oh,
he's the guy with the big muscular back to the
mhm.
camera. Anyway, so I trained a form of taekwondo, and that was back in the day when we banged pretty hard. It was a lot of fun. I'd come back from classes with bruises and bumps and scrapes, and it was a lot of fun. Um, and I spent a number of years, late mid '70s was when I started, and then later I met Remy about in the late '70s, and that forever changed my martial arts path. But um, yeah, so we did a lot of banging around, punching and kicking, and all there was PKA was kind of the thing at that point. Bill Super,
Oh, the professional karate.
yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, Superfoot Wallace was. We
Yeah,
didn't
right.
do
Okay.
we didn't do full contact. We were a little more rational, but
Yeah.
we did controlled contact and light to heavy, depending upon what we were up to.
Yeah. No, no. Like most of us around our age, I mean, we started with traditional martial arts, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
we didn't have the quote unquote was back then the eclectics, right? I mean, so
yeah.
were you introduced to Remy?
I had a dojo. I was partners with my instructor in the dojo that we had in Hollywood, and literally it was a block off of Sunset and Hollywood Boulevard. So it was right in the thick of things, and we were in contact. We did seminars periodically. We were open minded. It was a rare thing then. We weren't stuck with just our one style.
Mm.
We were, interested and open to various things. And a friend of ours, Fred King up in Oregon, was similar minded, and he invited people over. And Fred originally actually met Remy and suggested we get together with him. So um, we brought him down, had a seminar at the dojo in Hollywood. Um, Rave results. It was great. That's how I first met Remy, and then from that point on, we hosted regular seminars, and I wound up traveling with him periodically and going around doing workshops with him, seminars.
It must have been such a cultural, I mean, martially dynamic change. I mean, here you guys, coming from a traditional background, and you're having this, Filipino gentleman come in and showing you weapons and all that. I mean, like, was it awestruck? Did things immediately resonate with you? But it had to be a really change as far as the experience, like what you guys were used to, right?
Well, for me, we did hand and foot. We did the traditional, not traditional taekwondo. We did modified, but like I said, contact type taekwondo. But I had my black belt, but I realized, I didn't know what to do if anybody had a knife or a weapon. Back then, it was just like,
Same here. I've taken
what do you do?
taekwondo too. Like,
What do
yeah.
you do? So when Remy showed up, and here's one of the beautiful things about Remy. He had an amazing ability to walk into any dojo of any style, anywhere, and within seconds, observe and understand their flow, their technique, and their stylistic intentions and where they were going and what they were emphasizing. So he would walk in and see, they're doing this and that. Okay, so he would walk in with the stick, and the stick was what we call the link between divided arts. Literally, he would walk in and show them something that they were familiar with, and yet coming from the stick perspective, and then expand on it and give them something they didn't have. So I always call the stick as a teacher, and as a teacher, and Remy utilizing that tool was able to just flabbergast people, regardless of the style that we walked into.
It's a common theme. Everybody I've interviewed, two things always come out. One, he could walk into, regards like you just mentioned, the
Mm-hmm.
dynamics, the people, the style, setting, amount of people, immediately convert to what he's teaching and blend it in. Also, just charismatic and remembers people's names and et cetera, et cetera. So it's right in line with what everybody else has said there.
Mm-hmm.
What, you know, so that from that first experience, I mean, were you hook, line, and sinker? You were like, wanting more of it and more?
I was a professional dojo owner, and basically, I recognized right away that it excited people on the one hand. So from a
Yeah.
business perspective,
Keeping those people in the door. Yeah, yeah. But for I
and
got
Remy
you.
was all about the business. He was all
Yeah,
about
oh, I got you. I got you.
booking seminars, making money, and spreading the art. Personally, it completely changed me, martial arts wise. I studied a hard, you know, really hard, not just physically forcefully, but the traditional hard style approach versus a kung fu soft style.
Mm.
When we came in with Arnis, it related directly in. It was like a jigsaw puzzle connection. It made it very well with my hard style because you're using force, you're using contact, you're using the same type of things that I was already doing just with a stick in your hand. But also, it came in with the flows and the angles of attack and defense that was completely different because it was even though the style that I had, we did do a lot of kicking, and a lot of kicking can be circular and come from angles. Still, it tended to be a
A linear.
pretty linear. And learning how to get off the line, learning how to detect emotions, and the whole thing, it completely changed my sparring and my fighting completely.
So, wow, wow, wow. So, did he, when he came in, did he keep it pretty much stick centric?
Remy was fond of saying that everything we do with the stick, we do empty hand, which is true. But we always start with the stick. And that's one of the things about Arnis in particular. We start with the weapon. And when I'm teaching new students, I love to give the example. If you are facing an opponent and you're both empty-handed, and you know the opponent's going to attack you, what's he going to attack you with? A hand, a foot, the right hand, a kick? What's he going to attack you with? You don't know. But if he has a stick in his hand, pretty obviously he's going to be thinking about the stick. So you narrowed it down from 5 or 6 options down to one right away.
Good
And
point.
so it gives you a sense of clarity, which is really good for students. Because as a
Yeah, they
student,
can zone dial in. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
it's going to come here, it can come there, it can come anywhere. You're confused. Now you have a stick. You're able to isolate and direct it and channel it. And so it's not that we are only paying attention to the stick because, yeah, the guy still has a hand and a couple feet to work with. But it really dials it in from a teacher's perspective and makes my life so much easier and people learn so much faster. And
You were early on. I mean, you're talking late 70s. I mean, like breaking the mold, as you put it, like having another art coming in. You know what I mean? Like late 70s. How dare you, like, even think about doing that?
right.
Um, Obviously, it worked out for the best as far as you go. So, Did you immediately, based on what he gave you, did you immediately like start incorporating in there? Did he kind of give you the green light, or was it after a few like seminars, or you seeing them?
We we were teaching taekwondo, and we had a lot of kids. The kids loved the sticks too. But anyway, we in my dojo for a while we ran parallel classes. We had Arnis classes separate from the karate classes.
Okay.
And the karate schedule was existing and been there for years, so we don't abandon that right away. But we had adults would come in, and I had people coming in from across the martial arts spectrum. I mean, name people coming in to study Arnis with us.
Mm,
Um, it was also at a time where there was no FMA.
late
That
'70s. I mean,
that was not a thing.
yeah.
FMA was not a thing. Nobody even knew what Arnis was. Arnis, Kali, Eskrima, maybe they'd heard one of those words before. They didn't know what they were. They didn't know what the difference was, if any. It was virgin territory. So we were working to stabilize the exposure and build the exposure. But my dojo in Hollywood was the first. Remy came and lived with me for a year. And we were the first dojo where he planted roots and actually taught regular classes ongoing.
Wow.
Now, that was a fleeting moment in history because Remy is famous as a gypsy. He lived with me for about a year. The classes lasted for 9 or 10 months, but he wound up, the road was calling and the seminar money was too good. So, we wound up floating and traveling again. But he was walking into an unknown territory. Now, having said that, in the Filipino culture, there are many, many practitioners of Arnis.
Mm.
And then many, many of them wound up coming over here, settling in LA and Stockton, all over the place. There's over 7,400 islands in the Philippines. Everyone had more than one style. Every family had their own style. It was passed on from father to son. So it was not a cohesive approach per se. There were
Mm.
stylistic differences from area to area or family to family. Stylistically, they would approach it in their own way. But coming here, what Ramey had done, and there's a reason it's called modern Arnis. Traditional Arnis is well, it's pretty brutal to learn. It's if you're sparring with a stick and you get hit with a stick, it's your fault for getting hit.
The
You know,
classical way of teaching it back in the
the
day,
classical way of teaching.
pain distraction being part of the syllabus.
Exactly, and that was not something that went over well. Well, we growing up with students, you lose students that way. Um, but Ramey modernized it in two ways in that sense. One was he observed all the different styles. He traveled and he knew what was up with all the commonalities of the different styles. So stylistically, he'd be able to go to pretty much any genre and
Mm.
take the best of that and mold it together into modern Arnis. The other thing was that he took the emphasis away from hitting the knuckles and hitting the hands to hitting the stick instead, which made it a lot more user friendly.
Interesting. Nobody's ever, and I'm not saying others didn't know this, but nobody up to this point, I've done several monies, has explained those two reasons the way you just did. Like far is that transformation and what made him so successful here, besides going to all the Kempo schools and spreading the art and all that. But those two things you touched upon, I don't
Yeah.
think anybody has that. And just if you don't mind repeating those two things again.
Um, Commonality of style and making it work from whatever style it is as opposed to just the one style, but the making it user friendly in the sense that you instead of hitting the knuckles and fingers, you're hitting the stick.
Because a
Uh,
lot of people bring that up, like, well, how come they do that, like in Blinta Walker there and all that? But now, obviously, that makes total sense. I mean, he's getting to these traditional schools user friendly, right? I mean,
yeah, user friendly. And once you've studied for a while, you learn whether it's karate or Arnis. You can choose the target that you hit. So just because you're hitting the stick doesn't mean you're limited to hitting the stick. In reality, one of the first things you do want to hit is the hand and knuckles to disarm the guy.
sure.
But if you can hit the stick, you can hit the head, you can hit the knuckles. I mean, you're in control.
Yeah.
That's skill sets. Um, but there's a third reason that the Filipinos didn't hit, which is a cultural reason, which is essentially going back in the long ancient history. The sticks were made out. The rattan stick was common. Rattan grows on trees. It's a parasitic vine. It's junk wood in the Philippines. Here, you pay a lot of money for it. I imported rattan for years for Remy, and it's a whole business, and rattan is valuable. But there's actually a wood which is a Philippine ebony called kamagong.
Oh yeah.
And the kamagong is the real thing. It's the fighting stick. It's heavy. It's ebony. It's the equivalent of a hickory stick.
Unforgiving.
Unforgiving, but also sacred. The kamagong sticks were considered sacred within the arts. So you didn't hit the kamagong with another stick because the kamagong was a sacred stick. So there was a little mystique and mysticism involved in that.
Okay.
So that was another reason why they didn't go stick to stick. So Remy, being practical, modernized it. So we're not worried about hitting stick to stick, and we're doing commonality of styles.
For somebody in that, like you're talking about late 70s and all that, and to have that not just the outreach, but that frame of mind of what to do and what to incorporate to be successful. I mean, it's pretty genius in a way. Like, you know what I mean?
Beyond genius, brilliant. Remy was human. Believe me, I can attest to that. But he was genius, and he was very good at diplomacy and working with people. He was charismatic. But he also understood what people wanted. Different people wanted different things. And again, in the Filipino culture, my wife is Filipino. I know far more about Filipino culture than I did back in the day with Remy. But Filipinos are very diplomatic. I'll put it to you that way. They're very diplomatic and very resourceful, and they've had to be. We at the crossroads of the world where you're.
I mean, right. Look where they are.
Indonesia, Japan.
Yeah, for sure. You know what I mean? I just, again, I've never, I've been exposed to Arnis. I've trained it a bit, just via seminar, what have you. I don't claim to be a practitioner. That would be erroneous of me. However, though, I do have an outside admiration for like what he did. I mean, like how he got here, how he spreaded it, and just for that early in time when, again, what you mentioned, I mean, here's an art that nobody's even heard of, but man, this guy's spraying like wildflower. I mean, it's just.
There was work. There was a lot of work. Remy.
Like absolutely. He was. I mean, somebody quoted me. He was doing close to 50 seminars depending on the year. I mean, right?
Oh yeah. Well, he could do a seminar in his sleep. I mean, that was he had the seminar down to just a simplicity. But really, in the early days, we did a lot of promotional work, especially with Black Belt and Karate Illustrated magazines. And then we came out with the book, which was published by O'Hara Publications. And that was one of the big things that Remy had really wanted to be able to do, was to get that English language exposure. He had done a book in the Philippines, but he really wanted that U.S. distribution credibility, because Arnis was not that credible in the Philippines at that time. Didn't have the respect that judo and karate had.
Which mind blowing.
Long story. Just imagine. It was just a homegrown perspective of, if in the old days, if you were doing Arnis, you were like one of the hoodlums that hung around in a seedy alley and gambled all day. That was a generalization.
Negative connotation to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, the caricature. Yeah.
What book are you referencing? Are you referencing the infamous Yellow Book?
That one right there.
The infamous Yellow Book. There we go. Okay.
That was our crown glory.
And what year again?
That was 83. It was published.
Still early. Wow.
Well, it was published. This is published in, well, it's not telling me here, but it was 82 or 3, 82-ish. Oh, if I could read without glasses on. Yeah, this is 83, the original.
So that's the original. Of course, there was copies subsequent to that, right?
Well, there were different publications later where they changed the cover, but the inside is all the same. The inside, that's me and Remy right there. Back when I had hair, just imagine me bald. Um, I was doing an interview the other day and they asked me, I wasn't really prepared for it, but they said, this was actually Dan Anderson talking. He says, Mike, I said, I know that any of us who trained with Randy know that his English was good, but not grammatically good. You could understand what he said, but not book style text, right? And he said, how much of that did I ghost? How much of this did I ghostwrite? Because the truth of it is that between me and the editor, this is all Ramey's content. It's all his technique, all his content. But we did the English. So
who was involved? You're obviously yourself, Remy, and who else?
I'm sorry, in the book?
Yeah, as far as the book, right? Yeah.
My partner Jeff Arnold, and then there was an eclectic. It was an honor to be in the book, of course. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it was mostly me, and Jeff Arnold, and then Roland Reamer was in it. Tom Zoppi was in it. Dan DeVito was in it. They all did cameos.
Nice. Okay, and they were all some shape, way, or form. I trained with them, or
yeah.
Okay. My God, these guys are breaking my balls on my yellow shirt.
The yellow what?
Yeah, they can't help themselves. Too funny. So all right, so he's staying with you. I mean, so it sounds like in the beginning, I mean, he was coming pretty frequently. I mean, was he at that time? Was he living in California or?
Yeah, he was living in California. He came out here. I don't know the exact chronology, but Dean Stockwell. Rainey did a movie in the Philippines with Dean Stockwell. Got to know Dean. He came over, and a couple people were instrumental. It's my understanding Max Palin helped get him here.
Max Palin. Okay, yeah.
But he lived with Dean Stockwell in Topanga Canyon for a while, which is a L.A. enclave of artists. But Remy moved out. He said, he smoked too much smoking, so he moved. He wound up in San Francisco, and that was his home base most of the years that I knew him. Later, he moved on to other locations, but he was primarily in San Francisco. Like I said, he lived with me for a year in LA for a year. He was a gypsy.
I hear. I mean, like that could not have been easy. I mean, like you were just traveling, seminars, weekends, driving, traveling, flying. I mean, whatever,
Yeah, but it's priceless. It's priceless to be walking down the steps of my house and have Remy all of a sudden pull out a couple sticks and start hitting me and making me do a drill walking backwards down the stairs.
Yeah, so, I mean, okay.
Priceless training stuff. It was fun.
Same to you, Brett. Thank you. Yeah, because you had him right there living with. I mean, wow. And so, what was there? I mean, was there a syllabus per se back then? A ranking structure or
no?
Okay, no. Okay.
No. We were not there at that time, and this is where it's funny because for me, I did not continue with the political evolution of things beyond the mid 80s. So I'm the original 10 years of what we were doing. And so basically it was a seminar format and he would travel all over the place. He would do seminars. He did not have a dojo, did not have a school except for that short period of time where he was with me in LA. And we taught certain drills and certain approaches. But in fact, this was part of the problem was that I had a dojo. I was teaching karate. We had ranks, we had systems, we had drills, we had the whole very regimented approach versus Remy, which is all just flowing. Whatever he felt like they needed, he would give the people. And after the second or third seminar somewhere, then people would be asking for more advanced stuff. And so what would happen is that a lot of times they'd form their own classes at the local level. They'd form their own classes to review the techniques of the seminars and what Remy had taught them so they could get good enough so the next time he came, he could give them something new and better. So that was the remote, that was the seminar learning aspect of it.
Okay.
My partner Jeff Arnold and I, Jeff was in Michigan. We had a couple schools in Michigan. I had my dojo in Hollywood. Um, he and I talked to Ramy about it. He said we have people coming in. Okay, back up a second. The brilliance of what Ramy did. One of the brilliant things as a businessman was that he walked in and gave martial artists something new and exciting, something they could work on that was simple and achievable that they could improve upon. But he didn't have to teach them how to do a horse stance and a punch,
Right.
because he leveraged what the dojo was already doing. Whatever system they had some form of training stances. Ramy never taught a stance ever that I saw. A stance? No. I mean, he didn't do that. He walked in, he had the basic assumption. It wasn't just the assumption. The reality was he walked in, the basics were there. Even if the school was full of white belts, still they knew something basic about that. He didn't have to sit there and teach them do this. So he came in as the exciting guy, giving them something new and flashy, and that really had good substance. But he was not training them from day one. Where on the other hand, my partner Jeff and I were training people from day one in little kids, 6 years old. It's a different world. So we said, Ramy, we need to build. We want to teach Arnis combined. Okay, so essentially what we wound up doing is we created a structured system, which we later called American Arnis, as opposed to modern Arnis, because we Americanized it, just like he modernized it. We Americanized it and melded it together with the training routines people were used to, but it was all from Arnis' perspective. So we still had kids coming in for after school. We still had kids coming in for fitness and to lose weight and to get self-confidence and all the usual reasons people come in for lessons. But we were using it with Arnis, but we were using also broader and understood training methods, which were not per se American. I mean, they came from Taekwondo or Judo or Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, we brought that all together. And he said, yeah, do that. And Ramy was famous for saying, make the art your own. And we created the system that pulled all that together from our perspective, also understanding that we were reaching out to people on a business perspective. But what Ramy was doing was he was walking in and doing seminars, getting a good fee for it. And he didn't have to do all the bookkeeping and drudgery and all that fun stuff.
I think about it, like he's just coming in. I mean, like no overhead.
Plus, he'd come in with 100 pairs of sticks and sell them for $20 a pair.
And shirts and whatever merchandise, and et cetera, et cetera. Staying at your house. I mean, right?
Yeah. Right. He had no overhead. He was the ultimate on that. Very, very smart.
I mean, genius. Like all across the board for that time frame. I mean, you hear about that now. Okay, but for that time frame, what he implemented, I think, obviously, not just inspirational, but obviously, folks to model like the approach that he did. You know what I mean? So as far as the ranking structure, I mean, like, so would he just eventually just say, hey, okay, Mike, you know what? You're good to teach all the way up to such level, or here's your black belt. I mean,
I wrote the original outline for Ramy of the rank requirements, because when we did the summer camps, we ranked people at the summer camps as well. And so basically, Ramy was very diplomatic about ranking. He acknowledged at the time that we were doing it. Now realize, again, this was back at the beginning. We were looking for exposure. We were looking to get people to even hear about what it was. We were doing articles in magazine and Black Belt. I did a couple dozen articles in Black Belt and Karate Illustrated and Fighting Stars and all these different magazines to get the word out there. And then people would see that and they want Ramy to come. Well, then a lot of these people were interested. Well, what is rank? Well, how does rank work?
How do you get it? Yeah.
Well, essentially, in the Philippines, he had a real simplistic rank system, like the original white, blue, brown. That's kind of what he did. But
he did have even belts over there then.
Yes, but most traditionally, but that was incorporating, that was modernizing Arnis.
Got it.
Arnis was a back alley fighting method that people that was it was preserved culturally in dance. I don't know if you're aware of this. What happened? Digressing on the history for a minute, but um, it's I can come back to that. In terms of answering the question about the rank belts, he had a basic system in the Philippines. He had no system here.
Right. Okay.
Except he granted a black belt to somebody when he felt they were ready for
And
it.
they had a decent understanding, and they could relay the information, teach it, not just perform it. Is that kind of the criteria?
Yeah, and also how many, be blunt, how many seminars were they doing, and how many
Oh, and
people
how
were
many
they
times he
taking
was
to
coming in
assist?
the door. I mean, we know we got to be honest. I appreciate your candor. I mean, that's part of it. Like, how many times you bringing me in?
Yeah, well, and not to say that there was no skill required or anything like that. It wasn't just a monetary thing at all. But he was very diplomatic about what he did,
Yeah,
and so
I've heard nothing but yeah.
yeah, so he's very diplomatic, and there was not a like if you're getting a first degree black belt, there was not a list of things that you did. There was no list prior to what I outlined for the camps.
So
So
prior to that was basically him just giving it pending some
yeah,
different factors before you came out with your
yeah.
yeah. You know what? Brett had a question here. If you um, do you see Brett's question, Mike? Um,
Spoken wrongly is naturalized.
would you?
Oh, that's uh, semantics. Um, you could we could have a whole discussion about what that all really means. Um, Americanized from the perspective that we were using it was making it user friendly for the American culture. Um, Not watered down, not changed. But, for example, today I use padded sticks a lot. I use padded sticks. I use rattans still. We do everything empty hand. But the padded sticks, and sometimes we wear training gloves when we need to as well. Um, Getting hit I was a professional musician when I started training. I didn't want my fingers mangled up either. Yeah, no, that
Well, I
was
mean, what would be the problem with that?
yeah, exactly. So I like, in a sense, I like the word naturalized because that is ultimately what it boils down to is natural motion,
Hmm.
and we're doing a how to put it, a generalized system that's that's using the stick as the training connection. So when the stick swings, it swings. If it stops, it's because you stop it. If you're sloppy with a punch, you can tell if you know what you're doing. It's sloppy. But if you're sloppy with the stick and it wobbles all over the place, it's real obvious.
Hmm.
So it works as a training aid very well that way.
I think no. I think you answered. I mean, yeah. Rich is saying, okay, also rank in the 70s was based upon rank from another arts, and sometimes also rank in the 70s was based. Oh, okay, all right, I'm sorry, he's just there. So
Rank in the 70s was based on Remy,
based on rank,
period.
yeah.
It was based on Remy, period. Yes, all those are factors that we could look at and go, I'm older, I'm more experienced, I'm already a black belt, I'm this, I'm that, but also, he tended to rank his key people first.
Yeah, they're the ones that are probably going to perpetuate it, and there.
Right.
So I
And they're the
mean, you're
ones
not going
that
to rank
they get
somebody
the
that,
rank. They get the
yeah,
rank. They're teaching students. I mean, it makes sense.
yeah.
But there was no syllabus originally. Yeah, there was a basic syllabus. Yes, you knew this. You knew the flow. You knew the drills. You knew these basic drills. Everybody knew that. Yeah, but it wasn't written down at that point in time. It was really up to Ramey to decide if and when you got a belt from him.
And so okay, so let's go. So you coined the phrase "the art within the art" per Rocky. Um,
Yeah.
so do you accept the challenge? What you said.
Sure, we can jump into that.
Yeah, I'll let you speak what you're comfortable speaking on that. I mean, what I guess what was the what illuminated you, or what was the inspiration for you to come up with that?
Okay, well, we have to look at context, the context of the times.
Okay.
We're talking about we're talking about transitioning from nobody knows anything about Arnis. That's what? to trying to get people to understand what it is, getting articles out there in the magazines, primarily Black Belt and Karate Illustrated were the main ones. Spent a lot of time down there at those offices. And basically, we were trying to promote what this was. Why is this something of interest? We're not trying to seduce you away from your base art, or throw it away. We're just here. This is a great thing. Okay. So we did a lot of magazine articles. I wrote a number of them. I consulted on a number of them. We were coming out with frequent modern Arnis related articles. Like I said, some I wrote, some I didn't, whatever. In 82, August of 82 was when the Art Within Your Art was published. Now, that was one, that was an article. I was the dummy in most of it. I loved getting beat up for the camera by Remy. But jokes aside, we were trying to raise awareness and continue that flow going. So when I was talking with one of the editors, we had an idea for an article saying, well, look, let's show how Arnis is similar in the sense of comfortable to people. So in other words, you're used to punching, or say you're used to blocking. You're used to a down block, a traditional karate down block. You're used to that. Okay, well, the Arnis version of it is this. This is something you can relate to. It's just you have a stick in your hand instead of just doing it empty-handed. Mm. And then from that, you can bridge into other techniques that are more arcane or not as directly connected. But the idea of the article was to show the connections, to show that Arnis was not some foreign thing that's completely alien.
Right.
It's you already know a bunch of it. You just don't know you know it. Put the stick in your hand and do same movement. Okay. So, and one of the things about an article is you have to come up with a title, and you want something that's catching, that's going to
catchy.
Yeah. So I said, so this is a thing about relating to people's art. I said, well, let's call it the Art Within Your Art.
So you, and everybody's gonna be like, oh, so he's starting. No, I'm just kidding.
That was the tagline. So
there we go, Tim.
The name of the article was Arnis, the capital. Yes, I'm the guy to blame, but not that. But I'm going to follow up on that. So the Arnis, the article was August of 82, Black Belt. Arnis, the Art Within Your Art. Okay. Then if you look at the article, there's a picture of one guy doing a down block, and then there's a picture of me with a stick doing the same move with the down block. Or there's a shot of Ramy doing something, and then somebody else doing this similar but different thing.
Empty-handed. Okay.
So it was to show the correlation. This is not alien. This is something you can relate to. You already know a bunch of this. Just have fun and learn how to do it. Okay. In context at the time, it's not something that was meant to be revolutionary. It was just a tagline for an article. Now, what people took it and ran with it in later decades, that's a whole nother animal. But at the time, in the context of it, people didn't know anything about Arnis. We were trying to bridge a gap and make it comfortable, familiar enough for them to want to explore it.
No, I totally get what you're saying. Like, you were just using it as a bridge, and where it went from there, I mean, that might not have been your goal. It got momentum on its own, and just.
Well, it's a great line. I mean,
I think so. I mean, I've covered enough shows, and that. I can't tell you how many shows where that's come up. The Art Within Your Art and the two contesting energies of and so forth. But catchy line, great line, obviously.
Great line. Yeah. It can be. It doesn't have to be anything mystical. In this case, it was to show that there was brotherhood amongst the arts and some commonalities.
Yeah. No, I get it.
It wasn't promulgating anything beyond that.
Yeah. So now. Okay, first summer camp. How did that kind of come about? Like, as far as the planning, and was the first summer camp Michigan?
Nope. First summer camp was West Virginia, mountains of West Virginia.
That was the first. So you were part of West Virginia, so California to West Virginia. Okay.
Well, okay. Here's the weird connection. Okay, so like I said before, we were building on seminars. People had more experience. Remy was releasing more content. building more people up. I said, Remy, we're getting more dojos across the country that are more consistent, that are needing more training. They're needing more time with you than they get seeing you once a year or once or twice a year in a seminar. They were looking for more. And I had other dojo owners talking to me saying, how can I teach a system? How can I teach modern Arnis as a system at my dojo other than having Remy come in all the time? Because the first thing is it is more expensive to bring Remy in. Travel, hotel, or whatever, or couch fees if he's sleeping on the couch or whatever. But it was a big deal to bring him in. Yeah. They wanted to continue. They wanted to do what I was doing. They wanted to continue having regular classes that would be recognized by Remy as authorized, as legitimate, and that would allow people to train more intensely, with the idea being that Remy, learning from Taekwondo and Koreans, that you can do ranked exams and create a good income flow from just exams.
Just from the testing.
Just from the testing, so that got Remy's attention. Okay, so the idea was we need something more intensive. Wouldn't it be great if we could just do a week-long session and give everybody everything and cram it full of their head? In fact, could we get a basic instructor certificate to people? Because the fundamentals you could learn in a week if you attain training. You could do a basic teacher credential for people if they did it. And you know what? What if we did 2 weeks? We could have a basic and another teacher credential. So this idea was floating around. One of my students in LA, one of my private students, was a self-made millionaire in real estate. And he was loving Arnis. And I was talking to him about this. And he said, well, I got a place you could do it. What do you mean? He says, well, I own this, used to be a boys' camp, a summer camp in the mountains of West Virginia. I said, well, he says, it's in mothballs right now, but, you could use it. So suddenly we had a space.
Yeah.
So I got together with my partner, Jeff Arnold, in Michigan, and drove down from Michigan to West Virginia to scope it out. And it was great. It was, I don't know if the old school boys camps. They had a big cafeteria hall. They had a dining hall. They had individual cabins that were not usually closed off.
When I was a kid, yeah.
They were screened closed. Yeah. Summertime is great, perfect weather. That's what it was. It just needed a little cleanup, a little. So what we did is, and this was actually where I first met Rocky. Rocky was training at my partner's dojo at the time. And we gathered up, I don't know, half a dozen, dozen-ish guys, I would say kids, who carpooled down. And the week before the workshop, the summer camp was scheduled, they went through and cleaned everything. Cleaned, scrubbed, took it out of mothballs, spit polish, and fixed it up, and did a whole number on it. And that was in the mountains of West Virginia, just outside of Lewisburg.
So that was the first camp, which
that was the first.
We did all the other camps.
We did 2 weeks in the summer of '83.
2 weeks, wow.
Okay. 2 weeks in the summer of '83. Not everybody was there for both weeks.
Okay.
But a surprising number of people came for both. So we promoted it through Black Belt magazine ads and so on and so forth. Sent out. In fact, this was I dug this out because I figured you were going to ask me this question. This was the brochure. This logo actually is the logo that I had designed for Remy's, for this summer camp.
Look at that. Wow.
So this started out, we had T-shirts done, and I've seen versions of this now ghosted around all over the place. But this was originally done for the summer camp of '83. We had the brochure, and you have all the stuff inside about it.
Wow.
What you can do, the whole thing. So the guys went out, cleaned it up. We had 2 weeks there, intensive. It wasn't a summer camp at a hotel. It was a camp.
It literally, yeah. Exactly.
It was a camp.
Yeah.
Literally. There were beds. So everybody brought their own sleeping bag, and there were, spring cots
Yeah.
in the boys
Just
camp.
like when I went to camp, Boy Scout camp. Sounds
Exactly what it was.
yeah.
Exactly.
You bring your own stuff, but yeah, you're going to be afforded a cabin with it, like you said, a spring. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. And it was fantastic experience. It was great. The farmer next door grew corn. So we picked corn and 20 minutes after it was picked, it was on our plate, roasted. Oh, it was so good. It was
Oh,
great.
wow, 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 wow.
So it was the real thing. And we had a full spectrum of people, and that's what kicked it off.
So from there, so at that camp are you saying how can I articulate this? Was there more sort of regimented, articulated kind of curriculum slash test? If so, did that occur there or?
In terms of the ranking, um, well, okay, let me look back up on the training. The training was still Ramey style. We all knew what to expect, those of us that were experienced, because it was pretty much a standard curriculum that he would be teaching everybody. It's just, it was all day, every day. Actually, we had the editor of Karate Illustrated came out for one of the weeks and wrote an article for the magazine. It was great. It was called, what do you call it? He called the weapons they brought to West Virginia.
The weapons they put to it. Sounds like Civil War enactment.
Yeah, exactly. But it was about the camp and the training, and it describes it really well. That was the January of '84. It was published, Karate Illustrated.
Yeah.
But if anybody wants to look it up, it's really worth reading because it tells exactly how that was done as far as the regimen was concerned. But in terms of the ranking and the testing, we had done it. I sat with Ramey and we had done an outline of what the requirements would be. Excuse me, that people would need to demonstrate in order to achieve a rank. Because some of the people were more experienced. Some had done Arnis with Ramey already, and then there were some brand new people. So we had an outline, but it was just an outline. Again, it was always Ramey.
It was at the end of the day, it was really him.
Right. It was always Ramey's decision. Yeah.
Okay. Whether regardless what you knew or didn't know, how frequent you were going, he was bringing you out, or right? He was coming out. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. And so that set the tone for the future camps, right? I hear right from Michigan to et cetera, right?
It started it. It was the first. There was nothing like that before. I have not been to any of the subsequent camps, so I don't have direct comparison. But Rocky tells me that that's pretty much what got it going.
Because from what I understand there, I guess the Michigan camps were pretty substantial, and from there,
we had a lot of people in Michigan. Michigan was another center.
I hear it was a major hub. Yeah, like when they had the camps there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So when did you officially, I guess, make American Arnis?
We published an article in Black Belt magazine that was 84. Let me see. Hold on one second. I should know this off the top of my head. I just don't remember. It was published in January of '84.
Okay.
So that's when we officially announced that we were doing that combined training system.
And so, and it's still present day combination of.
Oh yeah. Well, in the initial years, it was heavily drawing from both the Taekwondo style training and the Arnis that it had grown from. Today it's evolved and matured.
I was just gonna say, like, have you kept it pretty much the way it was given to you, or you create some evolution?
It's evolved.
Okay.
Everything evolves
as well as it should. Yeah, absolutely.
You roll it through.
Robert Small is saying,
hey, Bob.
He needs a ranking.
Hey, Bob. Never got his. Well, I'm so okay. Talk to me.
Yeah, I need a ranking. And so regardless of who comes to your school, are they getting the quote? They're getting the American Arnis. So the fusion thereof.
They're getting American Arnis in the sense that it is the user-friendly version of Arnis and martial arts training. So it's not what you. It's one. Okay, here's one of the other things that's maybe not so well known is that traditionally this was a father to son thing. It was one-on-one training, and at most you'd have a small group of a couple people. And so that's how the traditional training, and having done it for so many years, that is in a sense really the best way. But when you're running a business and you're running a dojo and you have more than a couple people, you have to do something in a larger format that you can still. One of the beauties, of the horse stance method, I call it horse stance training method. You can have 2 people or 100
You
people
could have,
all do the same thing at the same time. You can spot somebody who's off. One teacher can spread themselves really a lot.
yeah.
Arnis is very much feel. It's a flow. And yes, there's plenty of techniques that you can do as a group. So the training system, Ramy did not give me the lead up. From the beginning, I had to evolve and translate. Ramy's method of teaching was, here, you do this. And if they do this, then you do this. Here, hit me here. Now I do this. And then I do that. And I could do this. I could do that. So you got to be on top of it all the time and see what he's doing. I had to, after the fact, go back and translate this to, I got it from Ramy. I get it. But I've got this guy who's essentially a white belt here and knows nothing. How do I get that guy from 0 to what Ramy's doing with me?
Right.
And that training method, the gradient drills, the stepping drills, the grunt work, is what I had to create. That's what we did with American Arnis. We created the grunt work.
So you created the in between white belt to like what he was giving you, right?
Yeah. We did the in between. We had to carry it. Because, from a practical business situation, if you're going to have a dojo and you're going to have students, you have to have a learning system that they can do that doesn't take one-on-one on everybody.
Yeah, you got a group of 30 people in a class. I mean, yeah, exactly. So now, do you teach it like, so I get your overall, as far as the scope of your school, somebody walking in new, do you teach it separately at all? If they like, hey, if somebody came up to you, hey, I would like your take on modern niece. Can I just train that with you? I mean,
I do privates.
Yeah, okay.
I do private small group. I do. We could talk about self-defense and practicality in sport and all kinds of things. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, right.
I work with people. Like I said, I'm teaching the next generation at this point. And so we have a rich smorgasbord buffet of martial arts that people can choose. Yeah. And depending upon stylistically what attracts them, depending upon what appeals to them, you'll have different people drawn to different arts.
Sure.
Some people, love jiu-jitsu, period. That's it. Other people, Aikido is the only way to go. One of my black belts was also a high-ranking Aikido black belt. And he says, before I did Arnis, I was blind from the waist down. He didn't see kicks. He didn't see anything low. Yeah. That was his paraphrasing of, he came because he got the spectrum. Right. So when I'm teaching, I teach regular classes. I teach kids. I teach adults. I teach self-defense if that's what the person's needing. It can be customized. The general class is a general curriculum that takes them up through the ranks.
Okay, so right, they're starting out there, they're getting everybody else is getting. It's just how many more times they attend, as far as frequency and
skill set.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay. So what are your future goals? Like, I mean, do you see like Arnis, fading out? I mean, like I mean, from my understanding, it's got the most practitioners in the world. Globally speaking, I mean, like, what is your goal as far as, I guess, perpetuating his art, if any?
Okay, I'll do a bad joke.
Okay, we like bad jokes.
This is related, and I'll tell you why. The bad joke is, why did God invent whiskey? And that's the answer is to keep the Irish from taking over the world. So along that vein, the Filipino culture is a very rich and diverse culture. There's, like I said, over 7,400 islands. I mean, it's just amazing. My wife is Filipino. My kids are obviously half Filipino. Um, better be. And that's the challenge that I had at the beginning in the late 70s and 80s is the same challenge that I see for the future, which is the lack of cooperation and cohesiveness. Ramey was very broad and he was an ambassador, but he was an ambassador of modern Arnis. I was not allowed when I was working with Ramey to go and hang out with other Arnisadors from different systems. So even though he's coming in as the outsider, wanting everybody to share and be open, when it came to me and Arnis, I was not allowed.
Oh, so even in the late 70s, all that, like he wasn't having it. You going cross training? Okay, okay.
Yeah, not other Arnis people.
Not under enough FMA style. I got you.
Now later, I worked with Sam Tendencia and some other high level guys, but the fact of it is that it was still parochial that way, and the cooperation. If I saw the Taekwondo world explode, basically because they cooperated.
The business model, my
The
God.
business model. They standardized, they cooperated, and it wasn't like there was only one system in Korea. There was school style after style after style, but they said we're going to all be Taekwondo, and we're going to all do this. And that
you said they cooperated.
and they cooperated, and the Filipinos are, and this is not a cliche, but it's very tight knit. And a lot of times it's not easy to bridge that gap from one to another.
No, it's still the way. I mean, I run FMA, for the 5 years, and it's still this reluctancy of this inner working and for the betterhood of FMA as a whole. I mean, it's still somewhat kind of tribal in some regards.
It is very tribal, and when I was in the 80s, we were fighting against ninjutsu, which was the big rage.
Yeah, ninjutsu and your and point fighting karate, etc. Right?
At point fighting karate, we had the nationals. Yeah, we had the tournaments, the whole thing, and ninjutsu was the thing that was catching people's eye. And we were trying. I was trying to work to create a more cooperative.
Yeah.
And I've seen more of that. I've seen more of that in small pieces over the years. But
small pieces, yes. I read it just from again my lens of that discussion, but not growing or consistent. Just gotta be honest.
Right, and this is not the fault of Arnis.
No, it's not at all. Matter of fact,
there's a cultural trust that people need to develop in order to be successful that way.
Here's a question from Tim: Is the material different, or is it different branding? I think going back.
It's different in the sense. Okay, it's pre-Wally J. Okay, I will say that. I've been told and I've observed that the OGs like me are looking at a completely different approach than what later years did, and I'll agree with that. The material is quite different in some ways, but having said that, you got 2 arms, you got 2 legs, you got body mechanics, you got a stick. There's only so many things that work.
Yeah.
And when you understand the principles, and here's one of the things that is key. Ramey was brilliant at showing people great stuff to work. Ramey, in my experience, was not so great in telling you why it worked or how it worked.
The how and the why.
He could show you how to do it. He could show you what things to do that were great, and he could show you how to do it. But the connection, the why, like this is an inward strike. Well, okay, even to the point of I'll go. We have a classic called the 12 angles, which is the 12. A lot of people call it the 12 angles of attack. It's actually correct term is the 12 angles of attack and defense. And then there will be arguments. Well, there's really only 7. Well, no, there's 13. Well, no, actually, that doesn't have this, so I've got 19 numbers. If you understand what the original 12 angles were and why they were, then you understand that everything is already there. So the depth of understanding, if a lot of times people change things to some degree because they didn't quite get it the first time or something doesn't work for them, so I'll adapt. That's okay. But if you really understand the fundamental biomechanics and why something works and how it works, you can generally see what the original intention is and why that 12 angles has stuck around for centuries.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I can go into that for years. But the fact of it is that it was a system developed. It's stylized right now in a sense because it's showing the attacks of points of attack for Spanish armor, because that's what it was designed. That's what it was memorialized to deal with.
Mm.
But when you understand what the motions are, not just it comes in this way, you do this. No, you come in this way. Okay, then what's happening? Then you understand it, and that's the depth of understanding. So the material remains the same in the sense that the biomechanics in the body are the same, but it is more coming from the point of understanding rather than rote memorization of a technique.
Got it. Okay. So, um, interesting. Though. I agree with you on, as far as, getting back to before Tim's question. The future, like, yeah, I would like to be more, I guess, enthusiastic and promising. Um, but I'm not, for several different reasons. Which that's a whole show right there.
Sure.
Going into the future.
Business, marketing, promotion is a whole different thing. I've got 2 kids. They're both studying with me. I'm training a bunch of other kids and adults. I'm not trying to conquer the world. I'm not trying to get in. Black belt's not there anymore, but I'm not doing what we did in 1980 in terms of promoting a brand new art to a whole new world. I'm happy with what I've done. I'm happy with what the people learn. Hopefully my son and daughter will pass it on as the years go by. And that's the legacy for me, is understanding the art.
Yeah. No, that's well said. And yeah, and I appreciate your candor. Honestly, wow. But this has been, well, I'm so glad Rocky did refer to me. When he said, the art within the art, and the first camp, I was sold. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're going to get an old timer around here who's going to really speak on what took place back in the day, as opposed to,
Those were milestones for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I told you I'd make it easy, non-political, right?
Oh, well, I'm all for that.
Yeah, there's enough going on with that, right?
Enough going on. We don't need to add to the political side of things.
Yeah, God help me. God help us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, well, hey, thank you again. You take care of yourself.
Okay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you. Hey, if there's any time you want to come on and discuss something else, please do not hesitate.
All right. Well, likewise, you have any other topics of interest? Throw them at me.
Oh, I always will. I always do. So
I can talk.
We'll make it happen for sure. I'll think of something. If somebody will suggest something. So
sounds good to me.
All right, you take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, folks, that wraps up 513. Yes, this was not Marshall Met today. So next, John Kuspis, next Wednesday on Marshall Met. 4 themes, front, back, front, back, front, as far as empty hands, all that. Phenomenal stuff from an AMOC perspective lens on empty hand. So really, really good stuff. And I'll have to get something else on our discussion. So if you've got any names or ideas, just throw them my way. I've been pretty Marshall Mess centric as of late. I have a list going there, but after my discussion, I do not have an ongoing list. So if you have those, let me know. All right, folks, thanks for those who watched. Chimed in. I like this guy. I thought, agreed, Dave. Very interesting stuff. Different stuff I never heard from previous Marnese guys on, like, and all that. Not this make it better, worse, or indifferent, just different, right? Just stuff I haven't heard before. So I thought I really enjoyed this episode. It was informative, which those are the ones I really like, where you actually take away and learn something, right? But again, guys, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see some of you next Wednesday night. Marshall Matt, episode 19, I believe.